Coming up on Esoteric, the employees interviewed, and apparently there's been a few missing people that have disappeared under his watch. He's worked for cruises for a very long time. I definitely nuanced in very gray. I think most of the employees that work.
And before we get into the episode today, just a big thank you to all of our patrons and our producers here on Esoteric Atlanta. Without you guys, this channel would not be possible. If you would like to help support the work we do here on Esoteric Atlanta, there is a link to our Patreon account down in the description box below.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. I'm sorry if you see the camera moving. I'm filming from a bed right now, and my dog just plopped down, and the camera's up on a pillow, so I apologize. I'm obviously not in my typical filming space. I'm traveling right now, and so I apologize for any inconveniences the camera may provide during this filming experience. But if if the movement does bother you, then feel free to just listen. You can just listen. It's no big deal. And because I am traveling, this is going to be a little bit different of a Mystery Monday than what I typically do. Because when I typically do Mystery Mondays, I've done a lot of background research to talk about the case. But again, because I'm traveling, going to be a little bit different. This is going to be more of like a commentary, my speculation, and I highly, highly, highly suggest that if you have not seen this documentary, it's new on Netflix, please go watch it. It's called Amy Bradley is Missing. Now, I was not familiar with this case at all. And my boyfriend and I both follow a content creator on TikTok and Instagram. I think she goes under the documentary girl. A blonde chick from Canada. She's awesome. We get a lot of, I mean, what a brilliant idea, right? To open up a content channel where you basically just review documentaries and some TV shows for people who are looking for something good to watch. I mean, that's what she does for a living, right? She just watches documentary. I mean, brilliant idea. Anyway, we've gotten a lot of good leads from her on past shows, past documentaries, and she did one of her reels popped up on my Instagram saying, "Hey, there's this really great new docu-series on Netflix that just dropped called Amy Bradley is Missing." And so I sent it directly to my boyfriend. We settled in to watch it, and I have lots of thoughts. Now, with that being said, before we sat down to watch the three-part docuseries, and this was why sometimes it's important to hear from eyewitnesses, because when you're reading eyewitness accounts versus seeing them talk about the accounts, it can give you a different perception. Because right before we sat down to watch this docuseries, I did do a quick Google search just to kind of familiarize myself with the case. That's what I do a lot. It's not like a deep dive. I'll like basically read the Wikipedia page or something just to get the gist of what this documentary is about. And so Amy Bradley was a 23-year-old young woman. This was in like 1998, I believe, late 90s. She came from a very close family. It was her mom, her dad, her younger brother, and herself. And she went missing on, I believe it was a Royal Caribbean cruise. Don't get mad if I believe it. I might be wrong on the cruise company. So allegedly Royal Caribbean cruise. I'm not looking for trouble with the cruise company. So please just look it up for yourself to fact check which cruise company it was. And she very strangely just like went missing one night. I mean, literally within a matter of like 15 minutes, she was gone. And so the whole docuseries is trying to figure out what happened to her. Now, when I was reading about it on Wikipedia, I was reading all these eyewitness accounts of people who had seen her after, and I thought, she probably fell overboard. Like she probably just fell. Like that was kind of my immediate reaction to watching or reading. Hold on one second. Hey, Rafi. No, Sorry. So I was reading this Wikipedia page and I'm thinking, these people maybe were just attention seekers, like most likely that she just fell off. She fell. That's probably what happened. But then I watched the docu-series and I was like, No, 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 sir. No, sir. No. I believe these eyewitnesses. So I would highly suggest going and watching the three-part docu-series. I might send this over to Catherine for her to watch it as well for us to analyze because there's so much about this case. I know in this impromptu video, I'm probably going to forget some details that I meant to share. So we might do a part two, a follow-up on this with Catherine, but let's just get into some of the backstory of Amy Bradley. So again, Amy Bradley was a 23-year-old girl. An adult, legally an adult, but we all know at 23, you're still kind of a kid. Her brother was a couple years younger than her. She was the oldest. She came from Chesterfield, Virginia, I believe, from a very close-knit family. She was very close to her family, upper middle class family. She had just finished university. She was like a star basketball player. Um, just very all-American, like not a whole lot of skeletons in her closet. I mean, really, at 23, how many skeletons can you have in her closet, except for one thing that comes up in the docuseries, which could have been a motivating factor in one of the theories. So one of the theories is that I have to be careful how I say this, that she decided intentionally to dive so that she would no longer be here, if you guys know what I mean, because of one situation in her life. And this is that she had just come out as a lesbian. And honestly, before that, you can tell, like you can definitely tell. And I want to remind my audience that, and I know I have a lot of people from the LGBTQ community that are really important members of Esoteric Atlanta. So I'd love to hear your input into this, especially after you've watched the docu-series. Now, the 90s, the late 90s was a very different time than it is now. In 2025, this is no, for most people, this is literally no big deal. It's really no big deal in 2025. But in the late 90s, we were coming to a place where we were getting there, like we were getting to a place where it wasn't that big of a deal, but it still kind of was. And so she had just come out to her parents. And apparently, her parents were pretty upset about the fact that she was a lesbian, which again is not abnormal for that time period. However, a lot of her girlfriends, so they interviewed like two of her ex-girlfriends, and one in particular was like, it's no big deal. Like, don't hold her parents to this. Like, this was a different time. So even the ex-girlfriend was like, you guys are barking up the wrong tree. This was just a different time. I know people in that time period, like I know people from my life, my friends, like my peers in school that came out, and I know their parents like literally kicked them out of the house, like literally cut them off. That was not the case with the Bradleys. So we have to remember that. Like, even though the Bradleys were in shock and were angry maybe or a little bit like I mean so many things are probably running through a parent's head. First of all, it's your daughter, so you definitely I think would want your daughter to go on and have babies one day. And so I think especially in the late 90s, like that maybe all of a sudden wasn't a possibility in this situation, or you're worried about how the world is going to treat your child. Like there's so many different reasons why the parents could have reacted the way they reacted. Again, maybe their expectation for what their child's life was going to be like is now different. I mean, but if you look back in pictures, it was pretty obvious that she was a lesbian looking back. But with that being said, her parents never cut her off. And that was big to me. So like I said, a lot of the friends that I grew up in that time period, I'm a bit younger than Amy. I was born in 83. So in 1998, I was 15. So when my age group, people in my age group were starting to come out, a lot of them, again, as I said, got cut off and like kicked out of the family and like put on the streets. That didn't happen to Amy. So I take that as her parents were just shocked and just reacted in a very shocked way, but they still absolutely loved their daughter. And they were in the process of accepting this about their daughter. They did not cut their daughter off. They brought their daughter on a family vacation. They celebrated their daughter. She was not kicked out of the house. Nothing like that happened. So I think that's what her ex-girlfriend was saying. Like her parents' reaction was just one of shock and fear. it wasn't one of like, now we have to get rid of our child. Not at all. Her parents still very much loved her. And so I think when we think about this scenario, this theory that she might have decided to dive in, to leave, there's more evidence that that didn't happen than that did happen. Like, for example, before she went on this cruise with her parents, she had just rekindled a relationship with a girlfriend. She had just gotten a new apartment. She had just gotten a new job. She had just rescued a bulldog. These are not things that a person who is so distraught over the revelation that their parents are shocked by certain aspects of their life, that these are not things that a person trying to an adult would do, right? They wouldn't do all these things. Amy had a reason to live. She had something to be excited about. She had a future ahead of her. And this cruise, from what I understand, I think they said her father had won the cruise. It was a cruise that was like gifted to the family. And they were all very excited about taking it. Now, here's the thing about cruises. So we're setting the scene. This is what's going on as the Bradleys are embarking on this cruise. They're actually getting on the boat. They're embarking, right? They're getting on this boat. Now, as many of you guys know, if you've been on this channel for a while, I am a world traveler. I have lived all over the world, multiple countries. Um, that is something that I'm really grateful to my mom, especially for growing up. My mom always said, "Hey, buddy." My mom, actually, my dog, for those who are new, this little boy right here, he's a rescue from India. That says anything about my traveling. If you're new here, I've rescued lots of dogs from India. So I'm a traveler. And again, I'm really grateful. My mother always made that she always said that was super important for us to do. Like any money you have, you spend it on traveling. Don't buy fancy purses or clothes. You take your money and you go and you experience the world. Also, something about me, and this might be just me, I'm not like a relaxer. Like I don't go on vacation to just lay around. Like to me, that sounds brutal. I have a lot of energy. I'm O negative. O negatives definitely have a lot of energy. We have more oxygen in our blood. I travel to do things. Like I travel to go on adventures. Like I never understood it when I would see these like fancy, like I'm in a bathing suit right now, but like fancy bathing suits um that were like jeweled. Like I never got that because I feel like you want a bathing suit that you can move in, because why are you going to the beach if you're just gonna lay there? Like go and get in the ocean, paddleboard, like snorkel, like do things, be alive. You got plenty of time just to lay there when you're gone. Like be alive. Like be vital. So for me, like a cruise is probably, I'm not interested. I've never been on a cruise. I never want to go on a cruise. It just does not seem like something that I particularly would enjoy. So in saying that, I'm not super up to date on like the cruise culture, but we're going to talk a little bit about, from my understanding of listening to other people speak about being on cruises. When you're on a cruise, they talk about how, this is a big boat. This boat is like a moving city, is how they describe it. It's like 10 stories high. Now, I do know from friends who've gone on cruises that the cabins that you stay in are pretty small. They're not like hotel rooms. They're a lot smaller than like a hotel room. And for the Bradley family, they were all kind of in the same cabin. So you have basically two adult children and two parents cramped into this little cabin. This is not anything nefarious. I'm saying this because her father was the last to see her, and it's going to make sense if you understand how small the cabin was and that all four of them were staying in the same, probably not ideal for the four of them to stay in the same cabin, but because the vacation was gifted to the family, they just took what they got, right? Well, in this documentary, there's a lady who works as like a passenger advocate for cruises because apparently her daughter also went missing on a cruise. And so she's really studied the politics behind cruises, the laws behind cruises. And she said the biggest misconception is when you get on the boat, it's like you're in an American city, right? But once you're 12 miles out to sea, you're in international waters and it becomes lawless at that time. So anything can happen, and you do not have the jurisdiction of like American law enforcement. The only real police you have, according to this lady, is the security guards on the cruise, and they're not typically trained like police officers. And so this is where a lot of issues start to happen is because you think when you're on the cruise, because it looks like an American city, that the same rules apply, but they don't because you're not in American territory. And we know that these cruises typically, like the one Amy did, they typically go around the Caribbean. They stop at different islands for the day. People get off and they get back on the boat and they go, they have all these restaurants, these like nightclubs on the cruise, all that kind of stuff. So that kind of sets the scene. And again, this is 1998. There are no cell phones. Nobody's filming anything. Nobody's like, it just, there's not as much footprint of people. There's really the internet's around, but it's not like a big thing yet. You know, um, I mean, at 15 for me, because I was 15 at this time, we were still learning the Dewey Decimal System in the library, like how to look up books, how to look up information in encyclopedias, that kind of stuff. And so they're on this cruise. They have this like formal night where they all get their pictures taken. And this was weird too. Like you get your pictures taken and then you can go to like this kiosk in the cruise the next day to like purchase your pictures if you want it, but they put all the pictures on display. And when Amy and her mom had gone to purchase the pictures, Amy's pictures were gone. And they didn't think anything weird at the time that her pictures were not on, that they had already been purchased, basically. And so basically the mom just thought, oh, must be a mistake. Well, can we get more pictures taken later on tonight? This is important. Obviously, this is a huge clue. And so that night they go to a formal, they get their pictures retaken. They go and have this nice captain's dinner, and then the kids go back to the cabin to change and they go out for the night to the nightclubs. So the story goes that her brother, Brad, and Amy were at this nightclub. Amy was seen like speaking to and dancing with like this Congo drummer. I don't know if that's the right drum, but Alistair Douglas was his name. They call him Yellow. He was from the islands. And so the Amy is seen speaking with him. Again, backstory, she's a lesbian. Like I think for many before this case was resurfaced, it does sound like people thought that this was maybe a flirtation, but we know now that it wasn't, that, because she was very much a lesbian. Again, pretty obvious when you see her pictures. So anyway, the disco closes for the night. Her brother and her return back to their cabin where their parents are sleeping. And on a cruise, I guess with the key, when you use the key, it logs every time a key is used to get into a room. So the cruise does have that about who entered the room at what time, what key was used. However, the cruise does not log when somebody leaves a hotel room, only when they enter. So we know that the brother, I think he walked into the cabin at like 3:35 a.m. And I think it was like 3:40, like literally 5 minutes later when Amy used her key to get back into the cabin. This cabin had a patio that overlooked the ocean. Now, the railing was really high. Like one of the FBI agents that took this case talked about how he's like over 6 feet tall and it came up to here on him. So the railing's really high. Makes sense why that would be, because you do have people who have been drinking. You don't want an accidental slip to happen. Amy herself, I believe they said she was 5'5", which is my height, which is an average height. Like she wasn't a big woman. I'm not a big woman. Like 5'5" is like average. So she probably could not see over the railing without shoes on, which again makes sense. It's for passenger safety, I would imagine. So her brother and her, they've just come back from the club. They're sitting out on the patio. She was a smoker, a Marble Lights, so she's having cigarettes. They're chit-chatting. Her brother then goes in to lay down on the sofa to get some sleep. So I think it was around 5:30 a.m. Her father wakes up and he sits up as a father would to make sure his children, he sees his son asleep, and he says he sees Amy's legs on the lounger on the patio. So it kind of looks like maybe she fell asleep on the lounge chair on the patio because he sees her legs. Now, granted, again, he just leaves her because she's safe. The railing is really high. She's a concrete railing. She's not going to roll off if she's asleep. There's no way. And so he goes back to sleep, seeing that his children are, in fact, safe in the cabin. He wakes up again around 6 a.m., so like 30 minutes later, or 5:45, I think it was like a 15-minute window, if I remember correctly, and she's gone. She's not there. He looks outside on the patio. Her Birkenstocks are there. So obviously she had taken her shoes off. They were kind of sitting beside each other. Her cigarettes, I believe, no, her cigarettes were gone. She had taken her cigarettes. And on the chair inside was a t-shirt that she had had on for the club. She had left it laying over the chair. So his initial thought was, oh, she must have gotten up to go and get some coffee. Now, they say it was kind of strange that Amy typically was the type of person that if she was going to be gone for like 15 minutes or more, she would have left them a note. Again, for my younger kids that are watching, we didn't have cell phones back then with text message, so it was very common that you would leave a note. So like you would take the back of an envelope or something and just say like went to get coffee and left it at the front door. That was super common to do, but there was no note. And so I think this is very indicative of a parent's intuition because I don't think her parents had anything to do with this. I really don't. I would love to hear your opinion on that, though. Like when you watch the docuseries, do you think her parents had something to do with this? I personally don't. But the dad at that point, I think he kind of starts to realize something, logically, she probably just went to go get some coffee, but she didn't leave a note. Something doesn't feel right. And so he immediately goes out to look for Amy. He says, I'm going to go see if I can find her. Now, something another person brought up, which was very good point. He only looked for like 30 minutes before panicking and going to security. This is a 10-story boat that's like a city. It would take way more than 30 minutes to check the whole boat. So the fact that he panicked after 30 minutes of looking, in my opinion, means that his spidey senses knew something was wrong. Some people could argue that he knew something was wrong because he was behind it. I think it's because his spidey senses went off. And so he went and got his wife. They went to security. They can't find Amy. They're begging security to do a page. Can Amy Bradley please report to, the captain's key, whatever, to a certain meeting point on the boat. But the boat refuses to do that because they don't want to disturb the other passengers who might still be asleep. I mean, I can see it both ways. Absolutely. I can see that maybe some of the employees at the Royal Caribbean thought the parents were just freaking out. This is a 23-year-old woman. She's an adult. She can do what she wants to do. And we're not going to disturb our other guest when she literally might have just gone off to get some coffee. So I kind of get that. But also, I think when parents are that freaked out and are begging you to do a call, maybe you should also listen. So they allow people to get ready to disembark. They're going to an island, and I think Carousel was where they were going this time. And then that's when they do the now. Sorry, guys, I've been sleeping with a fan right on me because the air conditioning's been acting up, and it's like really affecting my throat. So I'm sorry if I have to scratch my throat a lot. They finally make the call. Will Amy Bradley please report to this particular meeting point? Nothing happens. All the passengers disembark the boat. They do a check of the whole boat. So they go into every single room checking for her. They basically determine she's not on the boat. She's not on the boat. So in Carousel, they get the local police to basically scan everything, and they have this way they can look in the ocean to see if she jumped. Where they can scan, they show the perimeter they can look and where the boat was and how the water was moving. Even if she fell off in a shark attack, the guy was like, something would have rushed to the shore, a leg, a finger, something would have shown up, and nothing had shown up. So they really did not believe that she had either fallen off, or they said that there's no way she's not. Something would have happened by now. She would have come to the surface.
And this episode today is sponsored by the Esoteric Academy, your at-home gym for all different unique workouts, health programs, courses,
and community. If you've been looking for a way to get in shape, but you feel like you're too busy to go to the gym or too intimidated to go to the gym, no worries. The Esoteric Academy is your at-home stop for all your health needs. It only has master teachers, and if you are looking for something to get your butt in gear, to get healthy, but you can do it in the privacy of your own home, then the Esoteric Academy is for you. If you use discount code BRICE20, BRICE 20, all caps, at checkout, you get the first 6 months of your tuition at the Esoteric Academy for 20% off. That's the first 6 months. That's half a year of a 20% discount on your tuition. Tuition includes 2 different tiers. One is only $25 a month, which gives you access to all of the exercise classes, which you have a full library full of workout classes with new workout classes coming 2 to 4 times a week. If you want to do the $40 tier, that also gives you access to all the health courses and spiritual courses as well as the exercise courses. On top of that, you get 7 days for free. So even if you just want to give it a try, you're just hearing about this and you just want to try it out, you can sign up, have 7 days for free, and if you decide it's not for you, you can always cancel your membership. So remember, use discount code BRICE20, BRICE20 at checkout for the Esoteric Academy to get 20% off your tuition for the first 6 months. Everything will be down in the description box below. So check. That's out of question, right? Like, even though they continue to entertain the idea that she could have taken a dive, really there's more evidence saying that overwhelming evidence saying that probably did not happen. Now, I talked about this drummer, Alistair Douglas. He comes up a lot in this docuseries because he was talking to Amy a lot that night. Remember, I told you her picture had been missing from the kiosk earlier. A lot of people knew who Amy was because apparently she had really pretty green eyes, and green eyes are very rare, so people would talk about her green eyes. And so they start to question this employee of the Royal Caribbean, the musician, and they basically just determined that he had nothing to do with it, but it's very sketchy. Like, it's obvious that he probably, in my opinion, did have something to do with it. Now, as time goes by, Amy is still missing. The parents are frantically doing everything they can. Once they get back to the United States, that's when a few FBI agents get involved to try to help find Amy, to help locate Amy. But we all of a sudden start getting these eyewitness testimonies. And they go on Unsolved Mysteries. They do all these things to try to put the information out about Amy. And it's not until after some episodes of Unsolved Mysteries air that more and more eyewitnesses come forward saying that they saw her. There was a diver who was there in Carousel like a few years later, and he saw a girl on the beach with 2 men that matched Amy's description. She even had the tattoo of the Tasmanian devil on her shoulder. He was certain, like, all these people who saw her are like 100% certain that they are very believable. Again, when I read the Wikipedia, I was like, oh, they probably didn't see her. But when you listen to these people speak on this docuseries, you believe them. Like, they saw her. This was Amy. They saw her, and she was with 2 men. One of them appeared to be allegedly this Alistair Douglas, this guy from the musician. He described him looking a lot like this particular guy that she was seen talking to. You also had this ex-military man who had disembarked at one of the islands. I can't remember if this was in Barbados or Carousel, but he had gone to a bar, we'll say, a business bar, we'll say, where there's a certain business being sold, certain products of pleasure being sold. Again, we have to be careful on YouTube how we say these. Starts with a B-R-O-T. I'm not going to finish it. And being in the military, he was not supposed to visit these types of establishments, but he did. And he saw this woman there, and all of a sudden he got alone with her, and she said, "My name is Amy Bradley. I am here being held against my will. Please help me. I got off the boat to buy DRUGS, and I ended up here, and if I can just get $200, they'll let me go. And she's telling him all this, and the description he's giving of the woman matches Amy's description. And besides the fact that she told him she was literally Amy Bradley and that she's missing. But he didn't do anything at the time because he knew if he reported it to his seniors that he might not get his retirement benefits because he wasn't supposed to be there, which, oh my God, dude, like he claims he's coming forward on the documentary now because it's the right thing to do. No, bro, the right thing to do would have been like go and tell your officials that this woman is being held like that at that time. Don't wait for years later where she could be anywhere now to be like, hey, guess what? I think I saw Amy Bradley. Now, the parents say that she wasn't into DRUGS, that she was more like a beer and smoker girl, cigarettes. I have multiple thoughts on this. She could have been looking for WED, which isn't that big of a deal nowadays. She could have been making up a story to get the guy's attention. Somebody brought that up. Like that is sometimes people in these situations will do. I've never been in that situation, so I don't know, but that people in these situations will kind of make up stories to get their point across so that they get help. So it's believed that they are being held against their will. So that could have been a possibility that she made the story up so that this military man would believe her and go get help. Um, so the reason why she said that excuse, there could be many possibilities, but they do believe that this, even the official agents on the case believe that this was Amy Bradley. Now, the craziest one that I thought, whoa, and I think this actually explains a lot about why Amy has not reached back out to her parents if she's still here on the earth. This woman was on a cruise many years later with her husband, and they had stopped, I think in Carousel. I think again, this was in, correct me if Aruba, correct me if I'm wrong. One of these places they stop. I think these girls that get in this situation that I believe Amy is in kind of get passed around from island to island. But nonetheless, this woman, American woman, is stopping to get souvenirs for her kids and her family. And she's at this shop and she's with her husband and she says, I can't really find anything here that I like. And the husband's like, okay, well, let's go on back to the boat or something. And she's like, let me go to the restroom first. And so she goes into the ladies' restroom. She's in the stall and she hears a bunch of people come in, a woman and some men come in. And the men are basically telling this woman, you have to be ready to go tonight. You know what to do. Don't mess up. All very threatening, right? And the woman says, well, if I do this, can we go see the kids? And they say, yes. And the woman gets excited. The men leave. The woman stays in the bathroom. That's when this woman comes out the stall and starts talking to her and says, darling, what's your name? She says, Amy Bradley. Where are you from? And this woman, she thought she said West Virginia, but now the eyewitness knows that she probably said Virginia because that's where she was from. And anyway, it gets really awkward. She ends up walking out of the stall, acting like a tourist, acting ditzy so the men wouldn't follow her. And she doesn't realize it until she watches the Unsolved Mysteries that that's who she saw. So this opens up another avenue here. Amy in that bathroom had said, can we see the children? This gets to what I think actually has happened and why they haven't found her yet. So it's pretty obvious if we look at all the eyewitness accounts that she was probably abducted. Now, here's where I'm going to get into heavy allegation, alleged allegation, and speculation. They do interview in this docuseries a few employees of Royal Caribbean. And these employees of Royal Caribbean did not do Royal Caribbean any favors. In fact, at this point, if I ever go on a cruise, which probably won't, but if I ever do, it will not be with Royal Caribbean because I am absolutely disgusted by the way these employees handled this situation. Now, it could have been that Netflix gave them a bad edit. I don't know. But basically, they were like, show goes on, like, whatever, sorry for this family, but because they're getting asked, like, why didn't you guys handle this appropriately? You could have literally stopped this from happening if you had listened to the family when they said she's missing. You could have closed off the boat and not let anyone off the boat. You could have stopped before you got to harbor to check everything to find her before she was able to be taken off the boat, and they just didn't do that. um and I was listening to some other TikTokers. If you go to my TikTok account, link below to my repost, there was somebody who had looked into one of the employees interviewed. And apparently, there's been a few missing people that have disappeared under his watch. He's worked for cruises for a very long time. I definitely believe, I'm not saying that the whole company of Royal Caribbean was behind this. Absolutely not. I think this is very nuanced and very gray. I think most of the employees that worked on that ship were probably really good people who were really upset to find out this woman had gone missing or heartbroken. It just takes a few bad apples to spoil the whole bunch, right? I think that there was some employee high up in this company, perhaps working on the boat, that is behind this business. If you guys know what I mean when I say business, the business that they put, the company that they put, the system that Amy was forced into. I think that because these boats go into international water, it's lawless. Once you're 12 miles off a coast, there's really no rules. And they know that. And so it's easier for them to take their pick of vulnerable young women. And when I say vulnerable, a lot of people argued that Amy was tough, that she was a star basketball player. How could this have happened? Amy might have been tough and she might have been smart, but she's not street smarts in this way. A lot of us aren't. I'm very smart. I have a lot of common sense. I'm good. I'm a good traveler. I know for the most part how to keep myself safe. But if you were not raised in a shady environment, like some of these islands and some of the stuff that happens on these islands, you're not going to know how to protect yourself. Again, Amy was athletic. Yes, so am I. I'm very fit. But I am the same height as Amy, and I have no illusions. I'm under no illusions of grandeur that if a man wants to abduct me, he's probably going to be able to. I'm smart enough to know my limitations. Again, I'm 5'5". I'm the same height as Amy. That's the average for a woman. I definitely would fight back if that happened to me. I would physically, I know myself. And unless I could kick the man right in the right spot of the family jewels, that would be my only hope of I think, of being able to get away. But what happens if there are two of them or three of them? So this is what I think happened. So remember how the car, they say they can track when someone comes into the hotel room, but they cannot track when they go out of the hotel room. I think that Amy had fallen asleep on the patio. Her father gets up, sees her there, sees the sun, goes back into a deep sleep. I think Amy might have gotten up, taken her shirt off. I think she thought about going to get coffee, but in that moment, I think this was just circumstantial. In that moment, there was a knock on the door. I think Amy, thinking I'm on a cruise, my family's here, I'm safe. I think she went to open the door to see who it was. And just by chance, I think these people were taking a chance. It happened to be this drummer and maybe a couple other dudes. I think they lured her out of the room. I think that they were connected to somebody in the boat company or in this boat. They turned the cameras off because they don't have this on camera. And they were able to cover her and take her and keep her concealed until the boat docked. And I think they were able to take her off the boat through a different exit than where most of the passengers were getting off. That's what I think happened. I think Amy had been marked because of the pictures that had gone missing. I think that that's a very big sign that she had been marked. And of course, nobody thought that. I mean, this is a bunch of I mean, cruises are expensive. This is middle upper class people. These are people that are probably, for the most part, on this boat are not affiliated with any type of crime. or even organized crime. They're probably just hardworking, honest Americans. They're not expecting this to happen. They're vulnerable because their guard is down. You're on a boat, like your kids can't go anywhere. People have speculated that Amy was intoxicated, and I listened to another person speak on this yesterday as I was curious to see what other people were saying. And this guy was a recovering alcoholic, and he said that it looks like now, again, every beverage that she bought goes on their card. So you're able to track and see how much she personally bought. Now, that doesn't mean that people weren't giving her drinks, but he said from like 6 o'clock that night to like 3 o'clock in the morning, it only showed like 7 beers, which 7 beers in an hour would be a lot, but 7 beers from 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. is really not that much, is what this guy was saying. And I agree. Um, Especially obviously these beers are being spaced out. So she probably was not as intoxicated as people think she was. She probably, and from what we understand, she was a drinker, like not like she didn't have a problem or anything, but she was a drinker. And so she could handle her beer. And she was a beer drinker. She wasn't a liquor drinker. I'm a liquor drinker. That would get me in trouble because that does affect you differently. But beer doesn't intoxicate you like as quickly and as hard as like liquor does. So that's a good point that guy made. She probably was not as out of control as you might think she was. And so I think that she had been marked. I think she was watched by this drummer. This drummer talked to her, got friendly with her so she would trust him. There could have been a possibility that they knew, obviously they knew the cabin. I don't know how it's set up with the decks outside. They could have been watching to make sure she was the one that came to the door. I don't know. I don't work in this industry, but I think it's pretty obvious for me as a layman that she was marked. And there could be many reasons why she was marked. Could have been her green eyes, absolutely. I think in this situation, a lot of times, I know this might come off as wrong or weird, but I think in this situation, a lot of times white women are probably in a lot more of danger, because when you get into this illicit stuff, I think that first of all, I can't think of how to say this on YouTube, guys. They're kind of a delicacy to men who are not from America, we'll say, and also American men who are coming to the islands and want to do some business deals that might not be legal. They might naturally pick a woman that looks more like that. You know how like serial unalivers typically pick their own race? I think that might be the same for this situation too. When men are doing things with women that maybe are against the woman's consent, they might be looking for their own. It might be the same kind of, I don't know. I hope that makes sense. Again, I'm not trying to be really careful how I word this because of the platform. So hope you guys follow along with what I'm saying. And the fact that her green eyes really stood out they might have been in the market for a green-eyed product, if you know what I would know what I mean. They might have needed a green-eyed product, and so that's what happened. And there was an incident where the parents got sent some pictures, very inappropriate pictures of a woman. Obviously, she was selling something, and they did a photo scan looking at Amy's pictures they had of Amy before this happened versus this picture, and it matches identically. So even the FBI agents believe that this is Amy in this pictures. So it's obvious she is in the sex industry now. That's what these pictures were showing. So that she is alive and she's working. She's a working girl, right? Against her will, more than likely, obviously, because she asked for help from one individual. And so the parents have hope that she, and I think she's also still out there too. I think she is. These pictures look just like her. And somebody made a funny joke, like the FBI did do an age regression photo with her from one of her photos, like from right before she went missing. And the age regression photo they did looks nothing like the picture that was sent to the family that was identified as Amy through all the markers of the bones and things that don't change on our faces. But what's so funny is that the age regression photo the FBI did really shows a woman who had lived a normal life, like just like a mom who had lived a normal life. It was a simple, not a woman who had been through hell and back. And so that is why I think the photos do not look the same at all. From the age regression to the ones that were sent, they look like different people because the one that was sent is the real Amy who's been through hell and back. It's not going to look like a soccer mom, right? She's just not going to after all that trauma. Now, they did a true crime buff in Australia actually opened up a website called Amy Bradley is Missing. And that's the name of this docuseries on Netflix. And because he became obsessed with the case. Like it's really easy to see why people became obsessed or have become obsessed with this case because like I said, once you listen to the eyewitness testimony, it's pretty obvious what happened. It's pretty obvious she was abducted. Like it's obvious that this is what happened. Um, and to try to locate her amongst all these islands, especially in an underground network of crime, a crime syndicate. As I say, it's nearly impossible to actually find people once they're stuck into this business because of the way this operates. Obviously, they have employees, we'll say, in high places that can easily move people. Obviously, some governments are involved. Obviously, I personally, in my opinion, believe I speculate that Royal Caribbean is involved to an extent with this. That's just my opinion. Um, and so this guy set up this website and for people to put any sightings that they have of her to help locate her. And they noticed another person contacted him and said, "Hey, let's look at the addresses, the VPN addresses of all the people that hit this website." And they noticed a pattern that for Thanksgiving, Christmas, now remember, Thanksgiving is an American holiday. It's not a holiday that's celebrated in Carousel or Barbados. It's an American holiday. So for someone to get a high hit on holidays that are specifically American is very interesting. There was also a high hit from Carousel over birthdays of family members. So Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays of family members, they saw a high volume of hits from Carousel. So who is looking at this website on these particular days? More than likely, it's Amy. Obviously, she's checking the website on her mom's birthday, on her dad's birthday, her brother's birthday, on her birthday. She's checking the website on family holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so they started to really hone it down to this is interesting. We've got this hit, all these hits happening from Carousel on these particular days. So that gave the Bradleys a lot of hope. And I will say, like, the Bradleys still have a lot of hope that she's going to come home. They have a lot of hope. The brother, Brad, the youngest brother, he in the documentary says, "I'll be 48 soon, and I've never had children because I've seen what my parents have gone through missing Amy." Now, why doesn't Amy call home? Well, there's could be many, many reasons why. Remember how she said in the bathroom, "Can we go see the children?" So people speculate that Amy now has children. These children are probably children of John's, we'll say. So no telling who their father is. They probably have different fathers, but obviously these children are very much loved by Amy as their mother. And they're probably very much controlled, these children, by, we'll say, the company that Amy works for. And so as a mother, Amy's priority now is to protect her own children. Even though she obviously misses her parents, she has a duty and an obligation to protect her children. And so her mother did make a statement like she knows she probably has grandchildren out there. Now we also have this possibility too. We know that a lot of times victims of this type of kidnapping, we'll say, they might be told that their family, something's going to happen to their family if they try to get help. And so even before these children were in the picture, Amy was probably terrified because she didn't want anything happening to her mom and her dad and her brother. We also have the possibility of Stockholm syndrome, where the victim starts identifying with their captors. I actually, I don't really think that's what's happened because she's still checking the website. But I do think that there might be some shame that she's also dealing with, even though this is not her fault. I don't think her parents blame her. Nobody blames her. This could happen to anyone, really, as this cruise uh advocate said, this could literally happen to anyone. It's not what she set out to do. I mean, shoot, she's a lesbian for Christ's sake. Like she's not interested in men at all. So obviously she's not going to get into a business. She already had a job and a rescue bulldog waiting at home and a girlfriend at home. This was not her fault that this happened. But there still, I think, could be some shame because of what's happened all these years. For all these years, she's been stuck in this industry. I also, if you really think about it logically, Amy went missing at 23 years old. She would be what, in her 50s now? So for most of her life, over half of her life, she's been doing this. This is now normal to her. It's become normalized psychologically to her. Our brain does really funny things when we have to survive. So I think that Amy is in the position now where she probably could reach out if she wanted to, and there might be a part of her that does want to. However, she's got children, and now this is the life she knows. So what's she going to do? Let's say she and her children get rescued. What's she going to do in Virginia? Do we really understand like how hard that would be for her to return to her life as Amy Bradley? Returning to Virginia, there might even be times where she actually misses Carousel or Barbados because that's what she knows now. To have to reacclimate herself to an American life is going to be extremely difficult. So I understand that. Even though I do hope that justice is done, I can absolutely understand why she has not called home again. Now, there's also another possibility. Like I said, she's in her 50s now. She's probably not supplying the product anymore, if you know what I mean. So has she been put in a position of her being almost like a madam? And now she feels guilty because she has become a part. I don't know. That's just speculation. And again, I don't think anyone would blame her if that happened because again, she's having to survive in a situation that most of us probably wouldn't survive. So I don't judge her for that. But anyway, that's my opinion on the case. Again, I think it's pretty obvious what's going on. Would love to hear your opinion on this. I'm trying to think. I'm sure there are things that I left out, but nonetheless, I might send this over to Catherine and maybe we can do an even deeper dive into this case. I cannot wait to hear your thoughts though for this Mystery Monday. What happened is that's why I titled this, Is Amy Bradley still missing? Like, is she literally missing? Or do we kind of know where she is and what she's doing? So I wish nothing but love to the Bradley family. I don't think the Bradley family has anything to do with this. I think they are just a typical American family. And I will say, if you are going on a cruise, just be careful. You're not as safe as you think you are. You're on international waters. Now, luckily for me, I'm 42. I don't think they're looking for 42-year-old women. I probably am not going to go. If I was ever on a cruise, I'm not, let's be real, I'm not going to be going to the clubs, right? I'm going to be going back to my cabin after dinner and going to bed, so I don't think I would ever be in that situation where I would be marked, especially at this age at 42, not what they're looking for. I'm 20 years beyond. At 22, I probably would have been in the same situation as Amy, but at 42, probably not. But nonetheless, always keep your eyes open. Remember, you are in international waters. You're not going to get the support that you think you are if something were to happen. So just be very, very careful if you're going on a cruise. With that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful week ahead. We'll probably have a few more videos drop this week. I am traveling. I should be back in Atlanta by next week. We've got I've got a meeting here soon I've got to get to, but it's a good meeting. There's some exciting stuff happening, and I cannot wait to share it with you guys. But leave me your thoughts and your opinions down in the comment section. Please be careful with the words you use, because I know it's not fair, but sometimes YouTube does monitor the comments and penalizes the channel for comments people make. So make sure you're using words like unalived instead of like the M word, or unalived instead of like the S word. As far as the industry that Amy is probably in, maybe call it the industry or the company instead of the T word, the carpool word, the T word. So we just have to be very careful because of this platform. And we want, if there is justice to be served, we want this story out there like crazy, so that hopefully if Amy does see this, she understands that we do understand what's going on. I don't think people are going to judge her. Um, I think most people just want her family and her to be at peace with this. And so, anyway, all right, you guys, have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I will talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.